welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijasan. Recently, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit announced that from June 1st, 2019, the state governors will no longer have control over local government funds. We would recall that the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees have been advocating for financial autonomy for local governments. But the Nigerian Governors Forum actually have opposing views. They are of the view that the federal government should caution the NFIU as regards the guidelines. This and more is our focus on Labor Lens this week.
Nobody feeding me. I lost my husband because my husband was a soldier. He died for Liberia. Since my husband, nobody helped me. Now only God. I just suffer about it.
Stricken in age with no energy to serve their fatherland again. They are men and women of the civil service known as retirees. Although they sometimes get their gratuities, it is not enough to address the medical challenges they're faced with. Muhammad Danjuma served in the Ministry of Defense for over 30 years. He is battling with prostate cancer.
Since January this year, I was also in admission till March before they discharged me. I also spent a lot of hell of money. So as it continue happening, I cannot say total amount that I spent.
He needs 1.5 million naira for his surgery. That's aside the money he has spent on the ailment since 2013.
Somebody that can help me for money, I'll be very, very grateful because I'm tired. Even in the general hospital, I was even telling my doctor that I'm supposed to have died, but God no agree make I die, and I cannot kill myself.
This initiative, which is a joint venture between the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and Chevron, hopes to lessen the medical burden of these retirees.
We cry out to Nigerians because most of them cannot afford their medicals. They cannot afford to pay for their bills. They're earning stipends, which hardly come, in a very funny manner. So definitely we have to cry out to people and corporate bodies to come and help us out. That's why we call on Nigerians. So when they saw the report, Chevron decided to help us out and give them medicines and medicals and support in whatever way they can.
They've spent a better part of their life to serve the nation. They should not suffer after retirement. So we should all put our hands on deck to make sure that all pensioners are paid their dues as at when due, and they should not be suffering. They should not have failing health, and they should be treated very well.
These pensioners are hopeful. They believe more attention will come their way from government, corporate organizations, and well-meaning citizens as they age on.
The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit (NFIU) rolled out guidelines to ensure direct allocation of funds to local government areas from the Federation account for them to be financially autonomous. The new guidelines released by the agency some weeks ago barred governors from interfering with statutory allocations accruing to the local government areas from the Federation account. Also, the new guidelines titled NFIU Enforcement and Guidelines to Reduce Crime Vulnerabilities Created by Cash Withdrawals from Local Government Funds throughout Nigeria impose a daily cash transaction limit of 500,000 naira on the 774 local government areas in the country. It also bars banks, financial institutions, public officers and other stakeholders from tampering with local government statutory allocations. The implication of protecting council allocations is that funds from the Federation account will henceforth go directly into the purse of every local government area. This means council areas will be free to spend their funds without taking directives from state governors who have hijacked their monthly allocations under the guise of state joint local government accounts. For several years, the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees (NULGE) staged protests and engaged government at different levels on the need for financial autonomy for council administrations across the country. Medinat Balogun works at a textile company in Lagos. She is of the opinion that the NFIU guidelines will bring good governance and government closer to the people.
State governments have not performed in that area. It's promises we hear before they are sworn in, but once they are sworn in, they become elusive. You won't see them. You can't reach them. So maybe you send emails and other things. So it's only when they do it, and they are not held accountable. So whatever you say, they are not there. So even the roads, okay, even the roads that we pass every day, okay, they can't maintain the roads. Even the schools are not functional. So let's give the local governments a chance, and let's see how far they will go. At least we'll be able to meet them, to reach them, to tell them our minds, to tell them our pains. And we know that these things will be addressed because they are reachable, and they too will be passing those roads. Because the local government chairman will be closer to us in the local government.
According to the data from the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, a larger percentage of more than 14 trillion naira allocated to the 774 local government areas between 2008 and 2018 was diverted by governors in the state accounts and misappropriated. Economists are of the view that the guidelines will eradicate corruption and ensure enthronement of good governance at the grassroots.
So what the governors are just saying about, it is something that they've been doing all together because the joint local government state joint account. But what we should ask the government is that why are they so much interested in what comes from the local government, from the federation? They are supposed to also be giving 10% to the local government. Do they really fulfill those obligations? I don't think, if they were sincere with themselves, over 90% of them don't do that.
Legal luminaries reacted to the Nigeria Governors Forum letter to the President, which describes the new directives as unconstitutional.
It's not for the governors to tamper with the money that belongs to local government. No, that is not the purpose. The purpose is to ensure transparency, to also checkmate the local government officials so that the money that is coming from federation account is not abused. And that's why they asked that joint account be created, so that the governors also can monitor that this money that is paid for the sake of the local government administration is used for it. Or we see what is going on. In fact, there was allegation that one particular governor withdrew 4 billion from the local government account in order to contest the last election. And it was in the news. And somebody raised it. Instead of the governor to respond, he was threatening to arrest that individual that raised the issue. So, why must it continue this way? Now, another area in the local government administration that we should actually address, and address squarely, is the issue of democratically elected local government officials. Section 7 says that the state must ensure that those who run the affairs of the local government areas are democratically elected.
The scenario is appalling. A situation where a state government, money that is meant for a local government, comes into the account, and the state government takes half of it and give the governor, the local government chairman, half. And then the one that the state government is supposed to remit to the local government, they do not even remit. And so the local government is left to work with half of what comes from the federation. And so by the time they pay salary, nothing is left. And so that is why the governors are quarreling that no, you can't do this. Because if what comes from the federation account, because ordinarily local government don't get from the states. So if what comes from the federation account goes to them directly, that means you'll be getting twice of what you were getting before. Because that same money before, let's say it was 10 million. The state takes 5 and give you 5. And now the federal government is saying, take all the 10. It shouldn't pass through the states. The state is quiet. If the state said you can use that, we won't give you any other thing. It is as good as, don't even bother, because you weren't giving me before. That is why the governors are quarreling and writing letters to Mr. President instead of approaching the court to say, well, there's a breach of the Constitution. And so we want to approach it. I think probably they want to explore settlement options, tell Mr. President not to reverse the directive. But when you also do that, what picture are you painting?
The primary functions of the local government include economic recommendations to the states, collection of taxes and fees, establishment and maintenance of cemeteries and homes for the destitute. Others are licensing of bicycles, trucks, canoes, wheel and barrows, establishment, maintenance and regulation of markets, motor parks and public conveniences, construction and maintenance of roads, streets, drains and parks, naming of roads and streets and numbering of houses, provision and maintenance of public transport and refuse disposal. Their duties also include registration of births, deaths and marriages, assessment of privately owned houses for the purpose of levies as may be prescribed by the State House of Assembly. Local government areas are also saddled with control and regulation of outdoor advertising, movement and keeping of pets, shops and kiosks, restaurants and other places for sale of food to the public and laundries. For Medinat Balogun and many other workers, the NFIU guidelines will trigger increased tempo of activities at the local government level, which will foster grassroots development. But with the argument of state governors that the only way out for the local government to attain financial autonomy is the amendment of the present provision of the 1999 Constitution. But the NFIU stated in its directive that defaulters will face international and local sanctions, such as blacklist of erring governors and heads of affected banks, shutting of erring banks, and putting violators on the watch list of 160 countries where they cannot transact business or pay bills. On the Profile Interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the National President of the Nigeria Union of Local Government Employees, Comrade Ibrahim Khaleel. He tells me that the 774 local government councils across the country will be more effective if the NFIU's guideline is followed by the state governments. Take a listen. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
A lot has been happening in the labor space, particularly when it has to do with Nigerian Union of Local Government, and we are very much aware of your union's pursuit towards achieving local government autonomy. Now, the NFIU has released a circular that seems to promote local government autonomy. I'd like to ask you, what's your take on this development?
Well, as a union in local government, certainly would be happy to have any intervention from any quarter that will enhance the productivity of this tier of government. And we saw the guidelines coming from this agency as a timely intervention to ensure that the finances of the local government are protected, to make sure that funds coming to local governments goes to the individual local governments in order to ensure people are carried along in developmental projects, people and the gap that exists in governance is adequately breached, which is the main aim of establishing local government anywhere in the world. And we were excited as a union, and we saw it as a right step in the right direction, and we believe it is going to be good for Nigeria and Nigerians.
Okay, looking at the engagements that your union has actually had in the last couple of years, we realized that the legislative arm has been actually carried along on the need to ensure local government autonomy. Now, I'm very much aware that some voted for local government autonomy and others did not. Now, my concern again is the state governors writing to the government agency NFIU, telling them that they have no business in how they actually disburse their funds to the government funds to the local government. I don't want to talk too much, but I would like you to probably enlighten us on the benefits of local government autonomy, how it will actually increase good governance in Nigeria.
Well, I think the issue of local government autonomy we have been yearning for a long period of time. It's all about having a functional local government system. a local government system that will be there for a common man, a local government system that can achieve that inclusive platform for development that was designed, to achieve with this tier of government. And we believe for you to have a third tier of government in any country, that tier of government needs some level of independence to operate. Because why do we have local government in the first place? As we have been saying time without number, is to provide that inclusive platform for development, is to ensure that people are carried along, is to ensure that governance are brought closer to the people. Decentralization in governance is achieved. And for us to have that, this tier of government need to have some pre-level of operation so that it can address those local issues that the other level of government may not even see as an issue. And that is the essence of the local government. And I believe with coming of this guideline, a lot of this will be achieved.
Okay, you've spoken a lot about how governance can actually be decentralized. I'm actually aware of the fact that these guidelines is actually backed up by the Constitution, and it will definitely curb diversion of funds from the state government. But I want you to simplify the benefits. When I say simplify, I want to ensure that people that are actually on the street will be able to understand how this can benefit them. Because from my observation, there are so many things that the local government worker or the local government chairman can actually observe that there is the need of the person in their local area. But that might not be what the state government might actually think. So can you simplify what you think are the benefits that will be that will make a direct impact on the average Nigerian?
In the first place, let us look at the guidelines issued by the NFIU. If you look at the guidelines closely, the guidelines are aimed at achieving, one, crippling all the fraudulent activities that take place at the level of state local government joint account. Secondly, these fraudulent activities are what deprive local governments the access to those funds that are appropriated for the rural development, which were tagged from the Revenue Allocation Commission as distributable wealth. And when you talk about distributable wealth in any country, you know this is portion of the revenue accruable to the country that was targeted to address the issue of poverty within the citizenry. And this is a situation we find ourselves in Nigeria. These funds are coming on monthly basis, non-stop from the federation account, but they are hanging somewhere. That was at the level of state local government joint account by the operators of this account. So by implementing this guideline, you will have a free flow of funds from the federation account to state local government joint account, and from state local government joint account, this guideline is protecting any form of expenditure that had been happening at that level and ensuring that these funds are further disbursed to the local government, which was the main aim by the provision of the Constitution that established that state local government joint account.
So why do you think that state governors don't actually want the NFIU guidelines to be implemented?
It is very, very clear to all Nigerians. If I were a state governor, I will keep quiet. Because by the Governors Forum coming out and start panicking on this guideline, it means that some funny things are happening there. Because the truth of the matter is that there is huge disconnect between the governed and the government in Nigeria. And why are we having this huge gap? It's because of the absence of local government. On paper, we have local governments, but in practice, the state government actually hijacks its local government to the detriment of common Nigerians. And that what increase the level of criminal activities in the country. The problem of kidnapping, armed robbery, and all sorts of criminal activities that are ravaging our country is as a result of poor inclusion, which the local government was designed to address as a result of the interest of the so-called governors of this country. So governors are only exposing themselves because they ought not to talk about this, because it is very, very clear this 22% from federation account was set aside by the Constitution of Nigeria in order to address the issue of distributable wealth so that there will be even participation across the board. But the question is that, have these governors also been able throughout this period to administer this fund in agreement with the provision of the Constitution? The answer is capital no.
A lot has been said about local government autonomy, and I'm very much aware of how you've been tagged, Mr. Local Government Autonomy. But I would like to move to the issue of minimum wage. The federal government has actually put its accent on 30,000 naira as minimum wage, but we are aware that some of your members are actually still being underpaid the minimum that is approved by the government. Any engagement, any follow-up as regards this set of people?
Yes, a lot of engagement has been done by the union, a lot of actions, street protests, strike action, and so on and so forth had been done. You could remember sometimes around 2014, 2015, our branch of Plateau State, under the leadership of the national leadership, engaged the government of Plateau State then for almost 8 months, non-stop battle with government. But the result was not so significant to address the issues. And you are also aware of the situation of local government workers in Zamfara State, which is headed by the chairman of the Governors Forum, who is also championing the issue of stopping the implementation of the guideline issued by the NFIU. You can understand between the lines why the governors are opposed to having a functional local government. It's because they don't have the Nigerian people at heart. If for any reason any governor will support this guideline to be, that governor must be Zamfara State governor.
There are assumptions from many quarters as regards local government workers, and some are of the view that they have so many local government workers that are not functioning as they should. Who is to be blamed about this set of people?
Whatever that is negative with local government system today in Nigeria is caused by the level of encroachment into the exclusive preserves of the local government by the state government. Because no local government is allowed to operate as a tier of government across the country. Local government has some exclusive preserved in the Constitution, but the state government doesn't allow them to perform. Even the IGR that is expected to harness by local government within their own localities, the state government, through the enactment of laws of the state assembly, in most cases, usurp those powers of the local government and collect as a state. And the 10% realized as a state IGR as provided by the Constitution that was supposed to be also channeled through the state local government joint account. How many state governments are doing that? These are the issues.
So are you saying in essence that if the guidelines of NFIU actually is implemented and status quo remains, are you telling me now that it will mobilize and empower local government workers to actually perform their statutory responsibilities?
Certainly, it will go a long way. It's not the only issue of independence we are talking about, but finances are critical. Because you cannot do anything without finances. You just raised the issue of some of our members not being captured or benefited from the 18,000 minimum wage. Now we are heading to 30,000. Why do we have that? It was because the finances of the local government had been hijacked at the level of state local government joint account by most of the state governors. But if you look at the strengths, financial strengths of every local government in Nigeria today, no local government among the 774 that will not be able to pay 30,000 as a minimum wage if the level of encroachment, the encroachment into the finances of the local government at that level of state local government joint account is curtailed.
It was an interesting conversation I had with you.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijasan. Thanks for watching, and remember, labor creates wealth.